Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start out a series of videos that I'm doing called Catching Up with BookTube. Basically, I took a year off from making BookTube videos and a year off from reading, so I'm trying to catch up. I'm reading a handful of the books that my favorite booktubers either recommended or favorited throughout 2018, deciding how I feel about them and if I feel like these books are worthy of all of the hype they've received. So first off, I want to talk about The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. This is a contemporary romance novel. If you haven't heard anything about it, I don't know what booktube you've been watching, but it is literally everywhere. It's the story of Stella, a woman who deals with high-functioning autism, and under pressure from her mother to sort of settle down, Stella realizes that she doesn't understand love and intimacy and relationships. So in order to sort of intellectualize that, like she does most everything else, she hires Michael, who's a male escort, to kind of teach her, guide her, maybe point out what she's doing wrong. For me, The Kiss Quotient is definitely a 5-star read. In fact, I would go as far as to say that it's one of my favorite romance novels I've ever read. And I'm really impressed by the level of following and praise that's received from BookTube considering its genre. But overall, this book is just undeniably cute. I think that it introduces some very relevant conversation to the genre in general. Romance doesn't typically delve into serious realistic issues like autism or cultural differences, and we've seen it more and more lately, but I think that The Kiss Quotient does bring something very valuable to the genre in general. And overall, I love everything about Stella in particular. It's refreshing to see a female heroine who is unsure about relationships, again, because of a realistic issue, not necessarily because she's this innocent, virginal, hasn't experienced much. I mean, Stella just comes off as very real to me, and I know that even though I don't have a name for some of the ways that I feel about intimacy or relationships, I had quite a bit in common with Stella as far as, you know, definitely keeping up walls and existing within this safe zone. I have a whole stack of my own intimacy issues. I really enjoyed this book, and I think that's pretty much been echoed across BookTube, at least amongst some of my favorite booktubers. Because I feel like everybody's talked about how wonderful this book is and broken down all the great things about it, I do want to talk about some of the problems that it has, or some of the things that I didn't love about it. Again, these things are not enough to bring this down from a 5-star for me. I thought that Michael was an interesting character. I thought that his family and his culture were really brought to life in the book, but I thought his backstory was a little bit flimsy. He's insecure with his ability to commit to a serious relationship because of some of the mistakes his father made in the past. Well, I think that's valid. I think that maybe we go a little bit too far, or Michael goes a little bit too far in assuming he's going to end up being the exact same person that his father was. When we grow up, or if we grow up with imperfect parental example, I think sometimes we go out of our way not to embody those things about our parents that we didn't like. And it seems like Michael has just sort of resigned himself to being this terrible partner like his father was. So I found that to be a little bit unrealistic or questionable, but again, certainly not a gigantic issue. I also do want to address some of the negative things that other people have said about it if they didn't like the Kiss Quotient. And I would say the majority of the things that I've heard have been a symptom of being uncomfortable reading a romance novel. So, the Kiss Quotient, by all means, is a romance novel, even though it is mass marketed as this romantic comedy. You know, basically those books that are sort of billed as romance, but it's so watered down that eventually it ends up being referred to as like chick lit. And in those books, a lot of the times what happens is there's all this build up to a very intimate scene, and then we know that the characters are going to participate in intimacy, but the book like cuts to the next morning. That's a lot of what you see in these traditionally published, marketed romantic comedy kind of books. But this, published by Berkeley, which is actually one of my favorite publishers when it comes to romance novels, this is a true romance novel, which means that there's all kinds of description about intimate relationships and intimacy, intimate acts. There's creative vocabulary for physiological aspects of those intimate acts. And so a lot of people who didn't like this book, I think that it boils down to them being kind of uncomfortable with the genre in general. And I completely understand that. I'm not one of those people, but romance clearly isn't for everyone. I myself do think that there are some of those aspects in the Kiss Quotient that are a little bit cheesy, kind of cliche, maybe. But I also think that we're dealing with a character who is awkward and unsure and kind of takes an intellectual approach to something that, you know, makes it all kind of fit. It just sort of fits. Like, if the love scenes are awkward, guess what? Imagine how Stella feels. You know, she is very awkward in the midst of those. So I can definitely forgive it for that as well. Overall, again, 5-star read, one of my absolute favorite romance novels on record at this time. I really cannot wait to read The Bride Test, which also includes a main character on the autism spectrum who has a brief appearance in the Kiss Quotient, Kai. It's Michael's cousin, and in The Bride Test, his mother goes to Vietnam to find Kai a suitable mate. But obviously I recommend the Kiss Quotient, as did everyone else that I follow on BookTube, and I had to go out of my way to find negative feedback about this book. If you like romance, you'll love this book. If you can stomach romance, you're probably going to find yourself pleasantly surprised, I think. So I agree totally. The Kiss Quotient is worth all the hype that it gained in 2018. I'm really grateful that it was talked about on BookTube and it led me to this book. Otherwise, I was so off the reading map for so long, I may not have heard about it. I may have overlooked it, and that would have been a real shame. Next up, as far as Catching Up with BookTube goes, I'm going to be talking about Sleeping Giants, The Cabin at the End of the World, Verity by Colleen Hoover. I just have to get all those things read, and then I will be weighing in on BookTube's favorites of 2018. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.